Hey everyone, welcome to our session on leveling up your tech for the cookieless future. My name is Megan Conahan. I'm an EVP at Direct Agents.
I'm Joe Belafonte. I'm the Vice President of Data and Analytics.
So what Joe and I are going to be talking about today is the coming removal of third-party cookies, what this means for brands, and pretty much how they're going to prepare themselves and how you need to prepare yourselves. So first and foremost, before we dive into all of the fun stuff, really what's been happening is consumers have become increasingly aware of how their personal data is being used as they browse the internet, right? And so what they really want is more privacy. They want more control over how organizations are collecting and storing that data. And this is nothing new. The digital marketing industry has been really moving in the direction of more privacy for a while now. You had Mozilla block cookies in 2018. You have Apple continuing to limit cookies with ITP. But most recently, Chrome said that they'll be limiting cookies or blocking cookies in 2022. And the reason this is so important is that Chrome has 66% of the browser market share. So essentially what we're looking at in 2022 is going to be a third-party cookieless future. So, Joe, the thing that I really wanted to talk to you mostly about is with this removal of third-party cookies, what is really going to change from a marketing standpoint? How are brands really going to need to prepare, and how are their marketing plans going to need to kind of pivot?
Yeah, so as it pertains to search and social, the required switch to first-party tracking they've already been made by the big players. So your Googles, Facebooks, Instagrams, as well as many others. So there shouldn't be any disruption in tracking click-through conversions from them. It's also going to be important to note that they, and this also includes Amazon, have troves of first-party user data that can be used for targeting within their closed walled garden ecosystems. However, when all this comes to display media buys, which will account for about 54% of digital spend this year, there are going to be some major impacts, especially as it pertains to targeting and attribution. So with targeting, display is very reliant on third-party cookies. Think about all the times you've viewed a product on one site, then go to another, and there that same product is. Or performing research for a family vacation, then be shown numerous ads for flights, hotels, and such. This type of targeting, as we know it, is reliant on third-party cookies that follow users around the web to gather behavioral data that can be used to target and deliver these hyper-relevant ads. But without third-party cookies, this goes away. Marketers are going to have to start relying more on contextual targeting to reach new or unidentified users via prospecting and remarketing initiatives. So this means placing more of a focus on understanding who your core audience is and where on the web they may be, so you may deliver the right ad on the right site with the right content. So this obviously is a major change in the way display ads are delivered and has already had impacts across some major display networks, including Facebook's Audience Network, which preemptively removed the inclusion of mobile web in early 2020, as well as Google's Display Network, which is proposing a solution to use what they're calling a federated learning cohorts that takes a hybrid approach by not necessarily targeting individual users one-to-one, which, as we know, has been the gold standard to date, but rather cohorts of anonymous individuals based upon browsing habits that marketers can use to target. Now, the second big change that I mentioned was attribution and how it's going to be impacted by view-through conversions going away. Knowing that advertisers and display media specifically is heavily view-based channel along with social, the likelihood of not having visibility into view-throughs is going to be a major blow for measurement. The results will be a greater underreporting of view-based performance, as well as another nail in the coffin for multi-touch attribution, which has already been impacted by increases in multi-device usage, limited visibility, if any, into walled gardens like Facebook, and now the loss of view-through conversions from display media. So with the new introduction of yet another major data dark spot, this could spell the end for MTA as we currently know it today, unless a new privacy compliant methodology is introduced in the future. And as a byproduct, what we're expecting as an initial shift from brands and marketers alike is to move more towards that last touch attribution measurement. And I'm sure there were a lot of people out there cringing when I said that, but it will provide a clean and accurate view into marketing, performance, and measurement until better solutions are developed.
Yeah, I mean, I think the attribution piece is going to be really interesting, and I know we're working on a few things that measure lift of more upper funnel campaigns. So it'll be really, I think, telling to see how marketers continue to pivot there. But you touched a little bit on personalization, and I did want to dive a little bit deeper into that for a little bit with you. So obviously, third-party cookies have been the standard way that we go about personalization, but yet with the removal, we're really going to struggle. I think marketers are going to struggle with a lot of that personalization, to your point, especially with display. But yet we know consumers continue to want personalized experiences from brands. I think that was 43% of consumers have said that they stopped doing business with the brand because the lack of personalization. So really more brands are going to have to turn to first-party data as a way to continue that personalization. And I mean, Joe, you and I have been talking about personalization and the use of first-party data and the importance of it. I feel like this has been an ongoing topic for us all year. And I think marketers are seeing it too. About 60% of marketers are saying that they're continuing to invest more heavily this year in first-party data as a way to prepare for the cookieless future. So Joe, we know first-party data is going to be important, but what I really wanted for you to explain a little bit more is, can you talk about the different types of first-party data, what kind of data people should be collecting, the best practices for data, and then anything else that they should be doing to really ready themselves for the collection and use of this data?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. So to prepare for this, as you mentioned, brands are really going to need to embrace first-party data and measurement collection strategy. Currently, many brands do collect user-level first-party data, but that's mostly as it pertains to transactions, such as name, email, phone number, what was purchased, how much a transaction was for, and so on. But when we look beyond this transactional data, brands do tend to fall short. So what needs to change is that brands need to think about the full user experience and how that can be used to derive insights about each user and then open up new opportunities for targeting. So examples of first-party data include transactional data, as we already mentioned, as well as on-site behavior. So pages visited, number of visits, traffic sources, devices, promotions, so you can identify if these are bargain shoppers or not, and so on. So as you can imagine, even with that brief list, you can gather a lot of data about users that will open up different types of data modeling and analyses that can be performed to better understand each user. However, this does still fall a bit short in terms of the insights still being inferences into who we think as marketers will excite and engage users. And that's where zero-party data comes in. It's definitely a term that's been floated around for a couple of years now and starting to gain traction. But there is still some confusion around what zero-party data is. So how I like to think about zero-party data is like how all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares. So the same goes for zero-party data, where all zero-party data is first-party data, but not all first-party data is zero-party data. So the differentiation between them is with traditional first-party data, a user doesn't have a choice with what they submit. For instance, if you make a purchase, if you want to make a purchase on an e-commerce site, you have to provide them with your name, email, shipping address, and more, or else you're not going to be able to place and receive your order. Now, zero-party data is different because this information is information that users voluntarily share about themselves and is typically done for an exchange in value from the brand. Think about a streaming service. You register and share shows and movies you like or dislike. The streaming service now knows what you are and are not into, which is very valuable to them. And in return, you, the user, receives better content recommendations. Another example could be with an e-commerce store that sells skincare products. Perhaps you take a questionnaire that asks you your age, gender, skin type, skin issues, how often you order skincare products. And in return, you are directed to a curated list of products that are best suited for you, and you receive one free one-day shipping if you order today. Because of this, the user received value from the brand, and now the brand will not only likely receive a purchase, but also know what products to market to this user, as well as what cadence or frequency to do so. Now, an important thing to know is when collecting first-party data, you really have to treat it like you're on a first date with the user. And I know it sounds funny, but it's true. You don't want to rush in and ask them 100 questions about themselves right off the bat. You'll scare them away. But rather space it out over time and build in organic brand experiences and touch points to help gather this information over time. Some methodologies we've seen success with are profile building, questionnaires, quizzes, sweepstakes, and even promotions. So now that you have an understanding of first and zero party data, and now as a brand, you have all this data that you're collecting and that you have available to you, an important question still does remain is, how do I put it to work? Because that's where the real benefit lies in a first party data strategy. If you just have all this data and no way to activate it, it's not going to do you much good. So what we are recommending and where the industry is really turning to are CDPs, or customer data platforms, that are able to collect all this valuable first-party data in real time across multiple devices and consolidate it into a holistic user-level profile. Using these profiles, marketers are able to create anything from simple rule-based to predictive machine learning models to create first-party audiences and share that out to marketing platforms. And they can be used to deliver highly personalized and relevant ads to your consumer base. So think about what we were discussing earlier with how display is going to be heavily impacted by the loss of third-party cookies and their use for targeting. By using your brand's collected first-party data and sharing that out to a DSP, you can still achieve levels of personalization and targeting that will no longer be available to brands that don't actively employ this level of data and MarTech sophistication.
And squares, I think it does make it really easy to understand for most people. And I know we like to say, like, don't get hung up on all the terminology as long as you kind of have the understanding about what you need to collect and a good strategy. Don't stress about calling it zero party data, first party data. Just make sure you have a good strategy. Make sure you're obviously getting it and then using it. So obviously, this is a little bit of a pain for marketers, right? This is a pain point, a thorn in our side, something we've been talking about for the last several months. Nobody's really happy about it, but ultimately I do think it's going to be a really good thing. It's forcing our hand a little bit, right? And the collection of first-party data will be great to continue to market and make your marketing campaigns more effective. But I do think it's also going to really enable and empower a lot of other really interesting personalization that you can do as a brand. So could you talk a little bit more about, now that you have this first-party data and you have it all segmented and you have a CDP, what are the other things that you might be able to do with this data that's outside of just running different marketing initiatives or marketing campaigns?
Yeah, so what we've spoken about so far are ways to collect and activate, especially as it pertains to display. But to your point, Megan, this data strategy change opens up so much more for brands to drive personalization and value to their users, which in turn will translate into increased growth and profits. So the first and most important part is the level of detail and insights that brands will now have access to with this type of strategy. For instance, many brands already collect data through tools such as Google Analytics, which is a very popular measurement tool. However, nearly all the data in Google Analytics and related tools are aggregated, which makes it near impossible to perform in-depth user-level analyses. So with this first-party data approach paired with technologies such as a CDP, brands will be able to access row-level user data that can be used to develop propensity models, determine lifetime value, predictive churn analyses, identify purchase behavior cycles, and more. And this in turn opens up many other benefits of data activation and being able to deliver personalized ad and messaging. not only to users via display, but across all channels. This opens up more opportunities to excite users with content that speaks directly to them and their needs. But not only doing this on one channel, but across all channels with real-time media orchestration. So if a user is in audience 1 and engages with ad A, then takes a set of actions on your site, the user may automatically be moved over to a new targeting group and have new ads and content delivered to them across your full network of media channels, all with a cohesive and unified message and goal. Additionally, dynamically personalized on-site experiences can be deployed based upon traffic and ad source, such as syncing on-site content and experiences to match the ad that drove the user to your site, or even customizing based upon a user's profile information of all that first and zero-party data. This can be as simple as changing the homepage hero image to show a product that is in the cart that says hurry and order today because it's running low on inventory, or dynamically filtering product list pages for items that is in the user's known size, or even getting as advanced as pairing machine learning and utilizing statistical algorithms to determine when to offer a discount on a product or order based upon predictive purchase intent signals. So as you can see, the sky's really the limit in what we can do with this data to provide unique and memorable on and off-site experiences to users, where there is that strong first-party data with supporting MarTech strategy in place.
Yeah, I mean, that all sounds super exciting, but obviously I'm sure very overwhelming for marketers. So I will say, if you do need any support with your first party data strategy or preparing your brand for a cookieless future, please feel free to email marketing@directagents.com. But that's just about it for us today. So thank you all for joining us, and we will see you all soon.